Thank you, ladies, so much for what you do. You're absolutely right. There is no forum for women to just celebrate each other, especially for Haitian women to celebrate each other. I think Haitian women are warriors and we move mountains for our community and we stretch so much. And it can sometimes be so thankless because we're just expected to be super women. So thank you for taking the time out of your lives to just highlight the different women in the community. So my name is Patricia Belfort. I like to say I'm both an open book and a storyteller. I was born in Haiti, but raised in the US, and my passion is marriages and helping other people have really strong marriages. I have been really passionate about marriage even when I was like in elementary school and middle school. I think the curiosity came from watching my mother struggle in her own relationships, and and then just noticing that other relatives had really great marriages, and just like what makes the difference, like what separates the marriages that are really healthy from the marriages that just don't work really well. So I remember when I was still a single woman in my early 20s, I started interviewing all the married couples in my church. I spent like a year doing that and just getting all of their advice and just hearing what they had to say to prepare myself for my own marriage. So now that I'm married, my goal is to give back because those couples really impacted my marriage. So I want to do the same because unfortunately, it's just not something that people are often open about. In my experience, the two things that are most important is open communication and also safety. And I don't just mean physical safety, but I also mean emotional safety, mental safety, just both people feeling like the relationship is one that is safe from judgment, safe from, you know, any sort of abuse, just like, because I think that point of safety is really where everything else flows out of. You can be a better communicator if you feel safe in the relationship, for example. So my mission was to help other women realize they weren't alone. And ironically, it helped me realize that I wasn't alone because I kind of suspected that to be true. But just in sharing my own story and having those conversations in private in the DMs, because a lot of women are too shy to comment directly in the comments where everyone can see, but then we'll have these really deep conversations through text or through my private messages. And it's just like, wow, like we really are on the same journey. You know, we're just living it in different versions. So I did a series where I actually broke down my own personal finances so that people could see what was possible. But my advice to anyone just starting out in a marriage is to do your best to live on one income. And I know that's radical, but it's possible and it reduces so much stress because especially in a situation like this pandemic, which who expected us to still be at home after a year? Many people have lost their jobs, and we know from statistics that differences and arguments about money is one of the leading causes of divorce. So if you're able to reduce your expenses, you're going to have a lot more freedom and incur less arguments when there is a time where your money isn't as much as you would want it to be. Our goals are to bring in more voices onto the vlog. So I want to start interviewing more couples. So because I want more voices besides just my own. We're all living so many different versions of this marriage walk. So interviewing more couples or more wives rather is definitely something I'm looking forward to doing within the year. I want this to be a bigger community. I want online support groups. I want retreats. I want classes. I want these women to feel connected in this Haitian sisterhood, wifehood thing. Well, for me, one of the things that has really broken through with people is just the fact that I'm so honest and vulnerable. So because I, get on the internet and I say, hey, look, I failed in this way, that way, that way. I made this mistake, that mistake, that mistake. It really helps people to feel like, okay, she's not perfect, and therefore she's not going to judge me. So a lot of the people who have come to me, I don't speak to them regularly. Some people I've never even met in real life, but they see my videos, and the vulnerability of my videos just helps them feel like there's a connection and that it's a safe spot. I feel like my transparency gives other people the courage to be transparent in their own lives, even if privately transparent. Well, being married has been interesting because I did so much research and so much preparation beforehand. I had a lot of like head knowledge, but what's interesting about being married is that sometimes you know the things that you're supposed to do, but then just like having to do the internal work of actually being the kind of person who does what she's supposed to do. So being married, I found that I've had to really overcome a lot of my own insecurities and a lot of just my own stubbornness almost. I found that marriage is a lot about working on yourself. It really has so little to do with your actual partner. And the struggles in marriage tend to just be you getting into a space where you are not sabotaging your own relationship because of your stubbornness, because of your insecurities, etc. So sometimes I have to sit with myself and say, is this too honest? is this because I'm married to a person, an actual human being, and I get to make choices about what I feel comfortable sharing. But then I also have to think about him, and am I crossing a line? And and how do I maintain the line between being open and just like being TMI? So that's been something that I've been trying to work through. Thankfully, my husband has actually been very open. I post a lot of my content on Instagram, but I'm also on YouTube where I'm starting a different project. So my main project so far has been lessons from my first year of marriage, where I give honest stories about my own failings my first year. But then on YouTube, I'm also starting this series where I give actionable advice on how to communicate, how to handle disagreements. I focus on the whys. Okay. And I am a wife. I have no idea what husbands go through, to be honest. So I can exactly. So I can be very transparent about my own experience. And I think that's what brings women to me. There are a handful of men who have, commented or who have told me that they, watch and enjoy my videos, but over 95% definitely the women. I find that discussing finances with them is not that difficult because my audience tends to be younger. And I think that's what makes the difference. I think millennials don't have their guard up quite as high as the previous generation. So topics like sex and money and all those things are just not as taboo. With my husband specifically, he's very American. So I almost don't even think of him as Haitian. That's why I was like, about half of the people who come to me for advice in my private messages are single women. They're women who are not dating, women who are dating and they're in serious relationships. A lot of those women have been coming to me because they know how they know how big of a deal marriage is, and they want to prepare. So that's actually what my next series is about, like building those skills for communication, for handling difficult conversations, for just like preparing yourself for all the things that come with marriage. So yes, I'm definitely interested in working with people who aren't yet married, because that's the best time to figure out this whole marriage thing. Because like I said, the major struggle in marriage isn't your spouse. It's working on yourself and doing the emotional, mental work of becoming someone who is able to compromise, able to be honest and vulnerable, etc. I witnessed it myself with, my own parents, with aunts, uncles. It was just like they were in a marriage, but the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. Everyone had their own bank account. Everyone hid their pay stubs. It's madness, but I think the younger generation is doing better. Si on pas marié et beaucoup parler de finances, c'est très important de parler de finances avant marié. Même avant mettre bague sous doigt, l'important. Ça, on besoin connaître. On besoin connaître combien d'argent mon a fait. Qui qualité de dette yo gagne? Est-ce que yo gagne un bon crédit? Ou besoin connaître qui bagay yo vle faire dans 5 années, dans 10 années. Est-ce que yo vle acheter un caille? Est-ce que yo vle ouvrir un business? Ou besoin connaître tout bagay de finances yo, et raison besoin connaître, c'est parce que ou pas qu'à planifier la vie si ou pas connaître qui côté ou aller dans la vie. Et ou pas qu'à planifier la vie si ou pas connaître qui côté ou commencer. So c'est pour raison ça c'est important pour connaître qui qualité crédit mon gagne, qui qualité l'argent y a porté dans le travail, parce que plus gros problème qu'on gagne dans le mariage, c'est yo pas connaît qui est qui qualité l'argent qui a venu, yo pas connaît qui est à dépenser, et ça qui est important, ou besoin connaître qui j'aime on dépenser l'argent yo. Parce que il y a des gens qui serrent l'argent en pile et il y a des gens qui dépensent en pile. Et ça a posé problème. Avant marier, vous avez besoin de mettre sur papier exactement combien d'argent qui a rentré, qui bill vous gagnez, et vous avez besoin de un plan avant marier. Et ça, c'est une bonne opportunité pour qu'avoir si t'es ensemble. Parce que si t'es tout pas ensemble dans l'argent, tout le monde a un problème. It is so important, but not just to know what it is, but to actually get it in your brain that you're going to think of them in that way. So what I mean by that is sometimes we know, okay, their love language is physical touch. But if you have a different love language, sometimes it's so hard to remember that they do love you, they're just showing it differently. So for me and my husband, we have completely different love languages. So sometimes I will try to love him in his language, but I forget that sometimes I'm missing that he's loving me in his own language because I'm not translating it very well. I think it is important to make sacrifices, but I also think it's important that those sacrifices are balanced to avoid resentment. If one person is always making sacrifices, or if they're being asked to make a very big sacrifice, one that they're not totally on board with, it could spell doom for a marriage. So everyone, should be open to give and take, because life changes in ways that we sometimes can't expect. But when someone is making a sacrifice, I think both parties should be very aware of it and should try to make that sacrifice as small as possible. So when you have different opinions about something that's really big, defer to the person who cares the most. So there's usually someone where the outcome matters more to them, even if just by a little. Like, let that person have it is what I usually advise. Maintaining your own self That individuality, I think, is something that a lot of people struggle with, especially when they are, new to marriage. Because when you're getting married, the whole idea is to cleave together and become one. And I think sometimes people focus so much on being one that they lose sight of who they are. They stop hanging out with their friends. They stop doing the things that made them happy. And then the danger becomes you're looking to your spouse only for that happiness, and they will always fall short. So then you feel like, oh man, this person let me down and all that stuff, but you really just put them too high on the pedestal, and you just need to get yourself back.
Yeah.
Develop a vision for your future and work together to make it happen. And for marriage in general, don't take it too seriously. I think the culture of being Haitian, you are a wife, which means you cook and you clean and you cater to your man, which is a beautiful concept, actually. But I think sometimes we see what the older generation did, and they kind of just gave their whole lives to the family and didn't keep very much for themselves and just became very bitter about it. If your friendships, you don't take it too seriously. You give a lot of grace to your friends because you realize that your friends are just people. Give that same grace to your spouse. Realize that they're your friend and they are growing just like you are. So respect your marriage, yes, but give that grace. Don't be too hard on each other. I had one wish. It would be that women had more of a sisterhood. I wish that women looked out for each other more, that we were more open with each other. And I think that would help so many of us along our journey, just to feel that instead of being judged by other women, we were being encouraged and helped along. And I think that this is something that's becoming increasingly possible. I think this next generation really is about that sisterhood. And I just think it's so exciting. I've been watching your videos, and these women are impressive. And we deserve to know about their projects and support them. So thank you.